Welcome to my first homebrew highlight, where I take a look at a homebrew game on an old system. I've always had a thing for homebrew games, particularly with those on Atari systems, as consoles like the 7800, Lynx, and Jaguar had big gaps in their official libraries, and homebrews have come along to fill in those gaps. Note that this is being captured not on an emulator, but from real hardware, which for some reason results in a slightly dark image. One thing I look for in homebrew games are original concepts. While arcade ports can be fun in the sense of seeing how an old console could handle a certain game, emulation is so good these days that I can enjoy most arcade games easily if I want to, and that's assuming I don't have them at my own professional arcade in Salt Lake City. Thus, original games are more enticing to me beyond that for a couple of reasons. First, they fill in gaps, as mentioned, in the console libraries that might have been lackluster during their official lifespans. I mentioned the 7800 and the Jaguar. Both of those had under 100 official releases for the short time that they were on the market, although the 7800 was there for a little bit longer than the Jaguar. But because of that, you had missing genres like few or no beat-em-ups or RPGs. And so homebrews fill in these gaps, but they also kind of serve in some cases as third or fourth generation software, where you get to see the limits of the hardware push beyond what anybody thought was possible just based upon games that had been released on the system back in the day. And then second, there's also something that feels special about seeing and supporting someone who put creative effort into an original game on a platform that may be difficult to program for, that didn't really have support for things beyond assembly or basic, at least back in the day. These days there are a lot of tools, but still I like seeing these efforts going into these platforms. And today's game is more the latter. It's called Wizard's Dungeon, and it's for the Atari 7800 ProSystem. It's developed by BydoEmpire. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what his or her name is exactly, and they just go by BydoEmpire on Atari Age, and you can grab this on the Atari Age store for $35. Let's read the game description from the box. You were the arch-wizard's sole apprentice, learning the craft early in your studies of the arcane arts. The mysteries of magic were just beginning to crystallize in your mind. On a dark night filled with restless dreams, you were suddenly awakened by your master. You'll never forget the evil gleam in his eyes as he bound you with magic, dragged you from your chamber, and cast you into the dungeon. You rise from the ground, determined to stop his evil plans. Use your magic bolt spell to survive until you can acquire more powerful magic. Gather riches and magical artifacts. Eventually, if you survive long enough, you may face your former master. You may even become a legend, but first you must escape the Wizard's Dungeon. So the best way I can describe the gameplay is it's Berserk meets Gauntlet or maybe Dark Chambers. No, you won't die if you touch the walls, but your wizard will fire in the direction he's facing, so that's where it feels like Berserk to me. Otherwise, it's a single-screen dungeon crawling game where you explore a map, shooting enemies, and collecting treasures as you go. No, that's not particularly innovative. It's not something that we've never seen before, but it is fun, and it holds great replay value as the dungeon layout changes every time you play, which is one of the more intriguing things to me about this. Most enemies are a bit spongy, requiring multiple hits to take down, but you do have 4 weapons at your disposal if you go exploring around. You start off with one called the Magic Bolt, and it seems to work out pretty well, but one you want to find is called the Psychic Wave. And there's a Fireball too, but it seems to be on par with the Magic Bolt. Maybe I just haven't used it enough to explore any additional things it has, but I mostly use the Psychic Wave or the Magic Bolt. And so the Wave would be my favorite, but there's another interesting aspect built into this game where as you go around each stage, you'll find scrolls that will level up the power of one of these spells. But as you level them up, it will add in different abilities. So on the Psychic Wave, you can, once you get it to a certain level, it'll start bouncing off of walls, and you can use that to do a little bit of strategy with your attacks. If you're going for a high score, then you'll want to spend time clearing out every room of enemies, which can become a little time-consuming in later levels as the creatures have more health, but it's not necessary for you to do so if you've already picked up the scrolls. It's just if you're chasing a high score. There are no boss battles until the end of the game, but the randomized mazes make up for that, in my opinion. Yes, if you do spend a lot of time clearing out screens, then it can become a little empty as you start backtracking, so that can kind of slow the pace down of the game overall, but it's not really a big deal. If you like exploring randomized dungeons, then it's fun in that regard. Now, you lose health by touching enemies. If you hit 0, you turn into a ghost, and then a timer starts to count down. That's where you need to find a tombstone to come back to life. They're marked with RIP on them. If you don't in time, it's game over. Are there any other nitpicks? Well, what I think I have is minor. There isn't any music in the game, although what's there is what I suppose you could call ambient sounds or ambient noise. While I wouldn't mind a pokey track, what's there is fine, as it actually creates a little bit of a tense atmosphere to the game. And as far as I know, Bydo wanted to make this work like a game which would have been released back in 1987 or 88, and I think he succeeded with that. Now, in the nitpicky stuff, there's only 4 stages, but again, I don't know if that's really accurate to call that a nitpick, because all the levels are randomized. And so the only thing I can think about when I'm trying to think about something negative is maybe it would have been nice to have a 2-player mode, but that also isn't necessary. Probably would have changed how the gameplay felt, so I guess I'm just grasping at straws, really. I did make it to the Archwizard once, but didn't realize I was at that point, so I got my teeth kicked in. But with a little over an hour of playing, you can get there. And maybe next time I'll just have to try it on easy mode. So is Wizard's Dungeon worth $35? I think so. It's a great addition to the 7800's library, and had it been released back around the time of 1986 to 90, I think it would be fondly remembered as a classic and a defining title for the 7800 today. So if you're interested in any games like this, give it a spin. It's worth it. Thanks for watching this one. We'll see you around, and also let me know what you might like to see for reviews of other homebrew games.